Aaron Dunn here from Smarter SMSF. In this video, we're going to walk you through the release of our COVID-19 temporary rental relief documents, which we now have inside Simple Fund 360 with a range of other COVID-19 documents to support you during this time. So what you can see here, these documents generate on a range of ways where we are not only following what the ATO's guidance has been around their FAQs in response to the coronavirus, but we are also following what has been introduced by the Federal Cabinet in respect to the mandatory code of conduct for commercial tenancies. So as a part of generating this order, you will receive an information memorandum that expands on all the information that both the ATO has released and also the mandatory code. There's an exchange of letters, both by the request by the lessee for rental assistance due to COVID, a letter from the lessor, being the SMSF, to the lessee confirming what type of adjustment has been made, and of course trustee decisions by the fund as lessor around how and why that rental adjustment is being provided. So let's now move into our document here. Again, just to note, as is the case normally, you can go and choose your fund in here and it will populate the fund information that it knows. So fund address, trustee details, etc., etc. So I'm going to just work through this document here. We have dates here around the date that the lessor or lessee is writing to the lessor, etc., etc. Then we also have then in here the lessee and property details. So in this instance, we've got Widget Co. And Peter Piper here is the authorised person as a director of that business. And he is requesting this information to the SMSF on the 5th of May 2020. Now we have our property in question being the 55 Tracy Street here. And then as we move to the next page, we're now looking at and trying to understand what type of adjustment is being provided. So here you can see we have a monthly rental being paid, but we can then apply either a cessation of rental payments or a temporary reduction of rental payments. And the ATO, of course, has provided a relief by not applying compliance resources in respect to 1920 and the 2021 year. However, there is still an obligation on the auditors to be ensuring that an arrangement has been set up on an arm's length basis. And that's why we'll see most people looking to do rental adjustments per the mandatory code of conduct, because in particular with our related party arrangements, because it sets out a core set of good faith leasing principles that need to be followed. And one of the things that we've done here is that we've created a Google Sheet. And what this Google Sheet enables you to do is to run those calculations following what the mandatory code has outlined. So you can see here, this is this sheet. You can make a copy of it as a Google Sheet, follow the instructions, or of course you could download it into an Excel document. But fundamentally, we just need to include the specifics in the yellow fields around the lease details. We, of course, have qualification conditions here about eligible for JobKeeper and turnover as an SME tenant. But ultimately, what we're looking for is this information, the calculation following the outline of what the mandatory code talks about. And in addition to that, there are a range of other things that we have included in this calculation as well. And if you want to use this as a tool to be talking to your clients, you can then start to see the information populate in the chart here as well about the deferrals and what ultimately happened. So what I've done here is I've then picked out information from this calculation and started to include this in here. So our lease date, our lease expiry date, the term of the lease, the current rental amounts, when the next level of indexation is to apply, how much that is, whether there's a loan or not with the property. So this is starting to look at whether any other conditions need to be, or other benefits need to be applied as a result of the lessor, maybe with the fund having an LRBA, having a loan deferral period, and whether some of that benefit is also passed on. We have our pandemic period, which of course is a statutory, is a mandated or legislated period as defined by the federal government, any recovery period. And then we have the elements that dictate the level of waiver, level of deferral, and the remaining amounts, including the deferral period for those rental payments to be recaptured. Again, all of this information coming out of the calculation here in this mandatory code document or the Google Sheet. So then we have our revised amount to be paid again from that sheet, the revised indexation date, which goes beyond the pandemic and recovery period, whether there is going to be an extension provided as part of this to cover that COVID pandemic period. And if it is, then what is that revised lease date? And of course, our trustee minute to obviously prepare our minutes of meetings around this decision. Ultimately, then you get the ability to then review all that information and then enable payment. Now, you will see here, there is a price here. If you are ordering this on a pay-as-you-go basis, you will just need to apply a credit card at this point in time, and the credit card information will naturally appear here that you will need to complete before you submit the order. For those of you that have a subscription with Smarter SMSF, as part of the BGL integration that we have, you will simply just have to click Order Now, as I do here, and this will just take a few seconds just to submit, and then you will receive the confirmation of your order. And after a couple of minutes, that order will then be delivered to you, both inside Simple Fund 360, but also you'll get an email confirming that as well. So I'm just going to pause the video here, and once that document is generated, I'll come back and show you what that completed order actually looks like. Okay, so we can now see that our document has been generated here. You would also receive an email confirming when that order has been done. So what I'm going to do is hit download, and you can see here this information that we spoke about earlier being prepared. First and foremost, our memorandum that talks about the specifics, both in the context of the ATO guidance, but also the mandatory code. If we go through, again, it talks about the documentation that we provide, and then it goes into the exchange of letters between the lessee here through to the SMSF as the lessor. A lessor response, of course, confirming the particulars, in particular focusing on those requirements out of the mandatory code, a revised schedule that we get the lessee to sign and hereby confirm what those changes are, and then the trustee minute of meeting, looking at and acknowledging the receipt of letter from the lessee, the specifics, connecting it back to the mandatory code of conduct for commercial tenancies that really demonstrate that we have an arm's length dealing, the ATO concession, the temporary adjustment in line with the code, and then, of course, the trustee resolution. So, as I said, that document is now available inside Simple Fund 360. You can order that as part of any subscription pack, starting at our Starter 25 pack, or order it at $165 inclusive of GST. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to the BGL support team or contact us at Smarter SMSF. Take care and bye for now.